Today we're going to be looking at the new circulation pattern at Marlow Rowing Club. But before we do that, we're going to look at the general rules of navigation on the Thames, talk about the different types of river users and their ability to see others, and review the hazards on the stretch of river adjacent to Marlow Rowing Club. So firstly, you can see on the screen the Thames Navigation Licensing and General Bylaws, which were issued in 1993 and updated recently, 25th of August 2023. And these are the rules of navigation that apply to all craft on the River Thames. And you can see the contents pages here. We're going to look in particular at Part 2C, which is navigation, steering, sailing, and speed. You can find this document on the internet and look at the contents in detail, but I'd like to draw your attention to some of the sections here. Section 25, master of vessel must keep a proper lookout. So the master of every vessel shall keep or cause to be kept a proper lookout by sight and hearing, and shall observe any precaution which may be required by the ordinary practice of seamen or watermen, or by the special circumstances of the case, particularly in times of high flow or by any other dangerous condition of navigation. I'd like to draw your attention to 31, vessels proceeding up or down the river. And Part A, the master of every power-driven vessel proceeding up or down the river shall, when it is safe and practical, keep the vessel in the fairway or mid-channel, and shall keep to that side of the fairway or mid-channel which lies on the vessel's starboard or right-hand side. So this is the rule which indicates that vessels should stick to the right-hand side of the river. Overtaking. In Part A, it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained elsewhere in these bylaws, the master of a vessel overtaking any other shall keep his vessel out of the way of the vessel being overtaken. And point 36 describes a head-on situation. And here in Part A, it says, when two vessels, whether power-driven or manually propelled, are meeting on reciprocal or nearly reciprocal courses, so as to involve risk of collision, the master of each vessel shall alter course of his vessel to starboard, so that each vessel shall pass on the port side of the other. So what that is saying effectively is that if you're in a head-on situation, you turn right, which would move you to the correct side of the river to avoid a head-on collision. So it's worth looking at this document. There are other sections which are of interest, but these ones that I've referenced have a particular bearing when we come to consider the circulation pattern. We need to think about visibility on the river, and for rowers, it's recommended to wear high-vis clothing for all crew at all times, really, in order to be seen, and to keep a proper look at all times. So for rowers, this means looking ahead every 5 strokes. This is as recommended in the British rowing video, which you might have watched earlier. And for rowers, you get a fairly clear view ahead in the direction of 45 degrees either side of the bows, and directly ahead is actually in your peripheral vision. So that's something to bear in mind. For canoeists and kayakers, they're facing in the direction of travel, and there is a risk for scullers going faster than a canoeist or kayaker, because the sculler has limited view ahead and the kayaker has limited view behind them. We need to think about the ability of powerboats to see other vessels on the river, and in particular, narrow boats have limited visibility because of their length directly ahead of the boat. So you need to bear this in mind. Powerboats may, if they're keeping a good lookout, see you in the distance, but they don't necessarily expect you to be turning and following the circulation pattern ahead of them. They'll be expecting boats going in the same direction to be proceeding on their course. So just bear in mind that you have your circulation pattern in front of you, but other powerboats may not be aware of your intentions. So we're going to now bring up the circulation pattern for the Marlow Rowing Club, and we'll just bring that up and do a screen share. Zoom in a bit onto this. Before we actually go through the circulation pattern in detail, I just want to focus in on some of the hazards on this stretch of the river. So first of all, the crossover points. So you can see the circulation pattern has got two crossover points here and here, where the normal path for the return to the club crosses the path leaving the club and for people making their turn here. So there's two areas of increased risk here and here. Need to remember the weir. This is a danger area, and as a protection, you can see the instruction, never go through the bridge on amber light. And towards the end of the video, I'll be talking about the circulation pattern for amber conditions. So the weir is a hazard, but also the lock, which is in this direction here, 2 Marlow Lock, has the effect of concentrating the powerboat traffic, so that when powerboats are proceeding upstream, they tend to bunch together in groups of 4 or 5. So you need to bear in mind that that might be happening. The other hazard, you can see there's a steamer landing stage here, and what can happen is that the steamers, quite large boats, can park up here, sometimes 2 or 3 deep, and could impede your route upstream. And also this area around the flagpole of Higginson Park is a mooring area for powerboats, and you can sometimes find powerboats maneuvering to dock or to leave and go either upstream or downstream. So that concludes the review of the hazards on this stretch of the river. So now let's look at the actual circulation pattern and imagine a crew coming down from an outing and heading back towards the club. So this is the wind down point. So beyond this point, you should be paddling light, going at a much slower speed so that any collision situations are minimized. You also need to be taking a look over both shoulders. If you are going back upstream, this is the turning zone. So this is the path you'd take if you're going up to do a second loop to head upstream. So at this point, you'd move towards the center of the river. And looking over both shoulders. So you might actually, at this point, if you're aware that there are crews ahead of you, you might want to look over both shoulders and pause your rowing so that you can actually turn and get a better look upstream. You need to be looking for boats leaving the pontoon that could be crossing your path. There are several boats in the circulation pattern. Don't spin early and push in ahead of them onto the landing stage. Just follow the circulation pattern. At this point here, you're also looking out for crews that could be making their turn and heading for the landing stage. So you go under the bridge, and once you get into this position, you're facing directly across the river, and you can get a very good look downstream at any boats that might be coming out of the lock. You can also see very clearly upstream at crews that might be following you down that you potentially could be crossing here. You need to complete the maneuver with the bows turning away from the weir, and don't stop here unless you find you're in a situation where there are other boats in the vicinity. So at the point at which you're here in the circulation pattern, you're facing upstream, you're technically on the correct side of the river facing upstream, and should there be boats coming through Marlow Lock, they will then make a decision to pass either side of you. It's their duty to keep clear. Once all is clear in both directions, you make your turn and head for the club. So That completes your final approach. You've got back to the landing stage. But let's just say a few words about leaving the landing stage and when you're starting your outing in the first place. So you want to be sure that there's no traffic coming downstream. And it's always a good idea if there is someone handy on the dock to ask them to take a good look upstream and tell you if there's anything coming, to make sure that it's cleared because you're about to cross this traffic route. And be aware that as you leave the dock heading upstream, you're technically on the wrong side of the river. So you want to move across as quickly as possible to get in the correct side of the river for an upstream journey. The circulation pattern does not prescribe a right of way at these crossover points because we don't want any crews to feel that they have right of way and just press on regardless. If you do want to stop, having left the club, this is the area to stop, get the crew organized, and make your way upstream. And if at any time you see a risk of collision, shout, "Look ahead, sculler," to warn the other crew of their imminent danger. So what do you do on an amber light? Now, we've mentioned the weir, which is to be avoided. So never go through Marlow Bridge on an amber light. So you need to start turning early. So for an amber light, the stream will be somewhere between 65 and 120 cubic meters per second. And you need to stop rowing somewhere around the White House and start your turn there. So in this area, you're starting to turn and you're aiming to position yourself in such a way that you're heading upstream opposite the position on the landing stage that you're aiming for. And then you angle your boat about 45 degrees to the river, and then you adjust your speed so that the upstream component of your speed matches the river flow. And then from this position, you find that you'll make your way across the river, and just as you're about to arrive at the landing stage, you straighten up and dock at the last minute. So just as a final reminder, always keep a good look at all times and communicate politely with other vessels. Be aware and take action to avoid collisions. And that communication is aimed at clearly stating your intended course of action and to warn others of any hazards.